What up, everybody? So, Power Book 4 Force concludes with Tommy successfully taking over the city of Chicago and planning on returning back to New York to partner with Tariq after Tariq said things got shaken up with his operation in New York and that he needed a new partner, and asked Tommy to return back to New York and move his powder with him. So this lets us know that things between Tariq and Chinadu didn't end up working out after Tariq connected with him at the end of the Book 2 series. So we don't know exactly how much time has passed between Tariq connecting with Chinadu at the end of the Book 2 series and where we're at right now on the Force timeline. But enough time has passed that Tariq had some challenges and was in need of a new business partner. But a big question in regards to Tommy returning back to NYC is how's this going to work out when he's already faked his death in NYC and was previously wanted for ghost murder. Tommy returning back to NYC will also reintroduce old threats like the Italian Mafia, while old threats like Jannard Sampson and Vic Flynn remain on the board in Chicago, still plotting behind the scenes. I think we'll also see D-Mac end up in New York with Tommy as well, as that was teased earlier in the episode when Kate said she was going back to New York and told Tommy that D-Mac always has a home there with her, and she said that Tommy does also. As the episode started out with Kate speaking at JP's funeral, with Jannard and CBI waiting outside, ready to spray it up once Tommy walked out. But Miguel has some CPD on his payroll, so they showed up in full force at JP's funeral. So because of that, Jannard and CBI had to just drive off. But as Tommy was walking to his car after the funeral to go to the cemetery, he did have a surprise as Vic sent Jimmy from the Northern Irish to take out Tommy, but Tommy ended up taking out Jimmy instead, then called Vic and let him know that he wasn't going to be able to hide forever and that he was going to find him and take both him and Ray out because the Flynn bloodline was going to end with Vic. Vic was laying low somewhere in the countryside, now going by the name Jason Booker, the name he originally gave Ray when they first met. And Ray said they were going to leave in a couple days to go somewhere Vic couldn't be extradited and open up a bar. Well, after not getting a chance to go at Tommy at JP's funeral, Jannard was on a rooftop about to shoot up when he saw a picture of him and Diamond together, which caused him to change his mind and stay clean. Keeping in mind that Jannard's last promise to Diamond was that he wasn't going to do drugs ever again. Then Jannard got a text from Ortega telling him he was sending more men and he wants Egan off the map and for Jannard to make it happen. When Jannard got back with the rest of the gang, he then confronted Raheem about not taking a shot at Shanti when he had the chance and tried to force Raheem to give him his phone. And because he didn't, Jannard took out Raheem, then opened up his phone to confirm that he was a traitor and let everybody else know that they needed to pick a side and pick it now. Back at JP's house, they were holding his repast as D-Mac was in his room, grieving and in a very dark place. Kate told Mireya that Herman wasn't going to attend the repast as well. But after catching Mireya on the phone trying to book a ticket to Mexico last episode, Kate was being short with Mireya, but hadn't told Tommy, worried that he might overreact and do something to Mireya, keeping in mind that Kate knows Tommy killed Holly. Ironically, I don't believe Kate ever found out that Holly was pregnant. She also told Mireya that she was hoping that she would do the right thing, and Mireya said that she was going to and that she had changed her mind and wasn't going to leave. After D-Mac finished grieving in his room, he was about to go hunting for Jannard, and after Tommy convinced him to wait, Kate came to talk to Tommy to tell him that she was going back to New York. And Tommy was actually upset that Kate was going to leave, but understood when she said she had to do it to stay sober. And at this point is when she let Tommy know that both D-Mac and him had a home with her in New York. At this point, Shanti knocked on the door and told Tommy that her inside man, Raheem, was dead, and they left his body in the middle of her boxing ring at her gym. But Tommy was convinced Shanti could still get to Jannard and trick him, so he sent her to talk to Jannard. But when Shanti got there, and after talking to Jannard, both Jannard and the rest of CBI knew that she was trying to play them. So Jannard planned on using Shanti to get to Tommy. But the problem was Shanti also realized Jannard knew that she was trying to play them. So because of that, Tommy's next move was to pay a visit to Gray Skull and the RDs to flip them against Jannard and CBI. But before he could do that, he got a text from Miguel about an emergency meeting with Che. And this was one of the most interesting parts of the episode, as it was revealed that the real bosses of the Estrada and Marquez cartels down in Mexico had merged the cartels. So that lets us know that, like I've talked about before in other videos, that both Che and Ortega weren't the main bosses, but representatives of the cartel. But Tommy wasn't down with working with the Marquez cartel, specifically Roberto Ortega, and was about to walk when Che let him and Miguel know the final condition of the merger, and that was to eliminate Roberto Ortega, as Che told Tommy that Ortega was his kill. So Tommy took out Roberto Ortega and said that he could with the merger. This was a major move because this also left CBI in their share of the coalition without a plug. This merger also could have been why Ortega texted Jannard about sending him more men and taking out Tommy, possibly knowing about the merger, and it would be his last shot to take him out. At the U.S. Attorney's Office, Bobby DeFranco was confronting Bill Sang after catching him meeting up with Taichin Chan last episode, and told Sang that he was going to do what he wanted him to, and that was to set Tommy up to get arrested for Stacy's murder and to flip on the cartel. At this point, Sang also mentioned that he was about to be sworn in as the new U.S. attorney. But Sang told DeFranco that the only way he would do it is if they only arrest Tommy, and DeFranco had to take half the money. Otherwise, he said he was willing to go to jail to protect his wife, knowing that DeFranco really only wanted to get to Tommy. So DeFranco ultimately agreed to Sang's terms. So Sang was able to get a hold of Tommy and set up a meeting for the next day. Back at the house Vic was staying at the countryside, he saw a news report about Diamond's death, which also talked about Claudia, Walter, and also mentioned that Vic was MIA. When Tommy went to talk to Gray Skull, he let him know that it wasn't JP who killed King Kilo, that Jannard was lying to him, but it was actually Jannard who took out Kilo, while also giving him the news that CBI no longer had a connect. So Gray Skull and the RDs decided to flip to Tommy's side and roll with him, while giving him the drop about where Jannard was going to post up next once he found that out. The next day, when Tommy went to meet with Bill Sang, Sang promised Tommy open reign in the city of Chicago, as Tommy told Sang that Ortega was dead and he works for him now. Then Sang mentioned Tommy killing Stacy Marks, and that's when Tommy found out Sang was wearing a wire, and Bobby DeFranco popped out, planning to arrest Tommy as they both had their guns drawn at each other. Then Sang took out DeFranco. So Tommy now has free reign in Chicago with the U.S. attorney in his pocket. And Sang later said at the press conference when he was announced the new U.S. attorney that both DeFranco and Stacy Marks were compromised, and that's why they both ended up getting killed. But a wild card, now that Sang is working for Tommy and the cartels have merged and Ortega's dead, is where does Chan fit in moving forward? That day when Jannard met up with the coalition, he said he was moving their operation to the old trees and lumber yard, and Grayskull texts that information to Tommy. When Tommy got the word from Grayskull, he contacted D-Mac, who was at Genesis' house, giving her a package of money so she could pay for school at Spelman, and was telling her goodbye because he says he's no good for her. And when Genesis tried to change D-Mac's mind and convince him to move to Atlanta with her to go to school like his dad would have wanted, he walked out to go meet up with Tommy. But when the crew met up at Miguel's spot to talk about the attack, Miguel said they were low on bodies and Jannard had a whole coalition. But Tommy said if they win this war, they take the whole city, and called in a favor for backup to Tariq in New York. After contacting Tariq, Tommy went to pick up Mireya to take her to a safe house, only to find a note telling him that she had left to go to Mexico to stay with her family, and for Tommy to come get her when everything was said and done. Then at the shootout at the lumber yard, Tommy and his crew took out several people, but Miguel and Shanti both got shot and were down, and as CBI were closing in on Tommy, Tariq showed up with a couple guys and saved Tommy, as the rest of the crew with Jannard and the coalition fled when they saw that Tommy had backup. But once they got back to the barbershop basement, everybody walked out on Jannard, the DSDs, the SODs, as well as Big Smurf and Bones, taking the rest of CBI with them in the process, leaving Jannard with nothing. Back at Miguel's spot, Tariq and D-Mac were having a drink and talking for the first time, and as D-Mac was talking about losing his father, he mentioned not being alone because he has Tommy with him, and revealed to Tariq that Tommy was about to be a dad. Then D-Mac told Tariq that Uncle Tommy has been everything to him, and Tariq told him, "I know what you mean." During this conversation, we can definitely tell that Tariq was a little jealous of D-Mac's relationship with Tommy, and that could have also been part of the reason why Tariq asked Tommy to partner with him and come back to New York at the end of the episode. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on moving forward. At this point, Bones, Smurf, Izzy from the DSDs, and Malik from the SODs showed up to talk to Tommy and let him know they walked out on Jannard and were ready to do business with him. But as Jannard was left with nothing by himself, sitting in the barbershop basement, Vic Flynn, after seeing the news report early in the episode, had some drinks and couldn't live with himself if he ran. So he showed up to talk to Jannard about taking down Tommy Egan. Both Vic and Jannard lost everything throughout the 4th series and will now be obsessed with taking down Tommy moving forward. Jannard is now off drugs, and revenge against Tommy will be his new addiction. So definitely something to look for in Legacy is either Jannard and Vic showing up in New York or undermining Tommy's business in Chicago while he's trying to build in New York. But as the 4th series is now concluded, one thing I want to say is it seems like they never locked the door to that barbershop because the whole series people just randomly walked in whenever they felt like it. But after this, Tommy held one final meeting with CBI, letting them know that they now answer to Shanti's showstopper. As Tommy told Shanti, she reminds him of somebody, talking about Liliana. Then Tommy went to call Mireya to give her the good news that they had won the war, and said it was going to be a minute, but he would come get her and his kid. And this is when Tariq went to talk to Tommy. He told Tariq he wasn't sure if he's going to show up, and when Tariq said that they were family, Tommy brought up Ghost and said that Ghost was family too. But Tariq told Tommy that he was there to help him, not dig up the past. And at this point, I felt like Tommy somewhat finally forgave Tariq for shooting Ghost, and acknowledged Tariq as a bad motherfucker who handles his shit. Then Tommy asked Tariq how things were in the city, and this is when Tariq convinced Tommy to partner with him and to expand his operation and build his legacy by returning to New York and starting some new shit. and there was no post-credit scene this episode, but the episode did end with the Big Rich Town theme song playing, which is a tease by itself, letting us know that the next chapter is going to be back in New York City. But with Tommy still being the boss and having an operation in Chicago, we definitely haven't seen the last of the Chicago storyline and the characters that survived the 4th series in Chicago as well. And there you have it. Leave your thoughts, theories, and predictions in the comments.